When I first started Deadlock, I wasted a lot of time learning things the hard way. I had to learn which movement mechanics actually mattered, what items were worth buying, when to fight, when to farm, and which small habits quietly win games. Now, after climbing to Eternus, I'm here to save you on your climb to the top. So, here are 50 Deadlock tips I wish I knew sooner. I'm going to split these into some different categories, including movement, economy, items, fighting, objectives, and mindset, so that it's a bit easier for you to follow along. So coming up first, movement tips. And firstly, you should learn how to dash jump. It's a simple and foundational movement mechanic where you dash and then jump when your stamina bar flashes blue. Another simple tech, crouch off zip lines in order to keep your momentum. Seriously, just press crouch to detach from the zipline instead of pressing jump, and you just preserve your momentum a lot more. Another simple one that gets overlooked a lot, you should be sliding whenever possible, for both speed and for infinite ammo. It's especially easy if you're playing a character that naturally likes to buy fleet foot and other movement items, since you can just slide just by activating the item instead of going down a slope. Wall jumps are also your best friend, so learn how to move around using them, since this will allow you to get to places more efficiently without using stamina. Somewhat on the same note, you should be mantle gliding every time you mantle a ledge. Just mantle, then hold crouch, and it's as easy as that, but look at how much of a difference it makes. Another tip that helps you move around the map faster is by memorizing where the vents are located on the map. Once you know where they are, this makes rotations a lot easier, especially if you combine them with some of the other movement techniques. I know this one may seem simple, but save your stamina before fights, since if you use it all, then not only can you not chase the enemy, but you also can't run away if you get into a tight struggle. Also, for moving around the map a lot faster, the teleporters near secret shops are way more useful than you think. And if you use them right, especially in the early game, you can catch a lot of enemies by surprise. Somewhat on the more advanced side is a tip that I use in my Eternus games is instant air dashing. This is a mechanic that is better if you have a movement item like Stamina Mastery because of the less gravity, but it's very helpful to move around the map. The way I do it easily is that I've added the V key as an additional dash key, so that IADing is as simple as putting my thumb across the keys, the space bar and the V key, and pushing them at the same time. Moving into more the economy side of things, I see a lot of players neglect troopers, but they're your best and most consistent source of souls on the map. You should always be looking to push the wave before doing anything else, since it not only gives you more souls, but also puts pressure onto the enemy. And when I say push, I mean it. Don't just clear the wave to be a neutral, just stay around a little bit longer, clear another wave so that your troopers are putting a positive pressure onto the enemy side of the map. Another tip that is very, very simple is just knowing your timings. By just knowing things like when camps and buffs spawn, you are prepared to make plays and capitalize on those timings, which lead you to gaining a lead over your opponent. It's also important to note that stealing farm is worth double, because if you steal an enemy camp worth, say, 1,000 souls, not only have you gained 1,000 souls, but you also denied 1,000 souls from the enemy, meaning that you've just gained a 2,000 soul advantage. On the same note as the last 3 tips, you should be farming backwards after creating pressure. This forces the enemy to worry about the wave crashing into their objective while you're stealing their farm and their souls. So be careful not to overstay your welcome. Also, in lanes, make sure that you're not splitting trooper waves with too many teammates. After about 3 teammates, you're just losing souls by doing this. Something I see neglected a lot in lower ranks is shooting the soul orbs to secure and deny souls. Not only is this useful in lane to deny half the soul value from the enemy, and also for the sinner sacrifices, since it denies half the soul value there as well. I guess on the topic of farming, before you play aggressive, you should buy, especially if you have unsecured souls. You should be looking to buy as close to the item values as possible, since this will minimize any souls you give to the enemy, but also allow you to be active and play a little risky around the map. Another thing that I see neglected a lot is that boxes and golden statues are absolutely worth your time around the map. If you're playing the game efficiently, especially in lane, you will have some downtime before the next trooper wave. So this is where you can make the decision to use that downtime to grab some extra souls and buffs from these boxes and golden statues before returning to lane for the next trooper wave. I guess going back to the topic of sinner sacrifices, these are high value and absolutely absolutely worth fighting over. At 8 minutes, they're giving 336 souls, which is an extra wave, and you get 4 buffs by timing them correctly. If you fight over the enemy centers and you manage to steal them, you're just denying so many souls of value from the enemy. On the same note, don't ignore the soul urn, especially if you're behind, because this can literally be your saving grace or the tool that pushes your lead further. If you're more than 10% behind, you deposit the urn way quicker, and if you're 10% ahead, it's great to at least deny the soul urn or fight around the pickup location of it, since this will stop the enemy from coming back into the game easily. Gaining an advantage is one thing, but knowing how to use that advantage is another, and as you play and get accustomed to the game, you should be seeking to understand why you're buying each item and if there's potentially a better item to buy depending on the stage of the game. For example, if it's the mid game and the next item in your build is escalating exposure, but the enemy team has been bullying you with stuns and CC abilities, buy Unstoppable and then teabag their body after you stomp to them. On the same topic, look to use the secret shops around the map instead of returning to base. This saves you roughly 30 to 60 seconds every time you need to buy an item and allows you to stay active around the map. And believe me, this adds up throughout the match. Also, when you're looking for builds in the build browser, make sure that you're staying away from generic builds with junk like 90+% win rate in their title. Instead, if you want to find a good quality build, you should look for one created by a notable community member like Ido, Lightbringer, Deathy, Parzillion, and so on, because these are the builds that tend to be optimal in terms of both playstyle and items. Based on the character that you're playing, you should also know your first major power spike. For example, if I'm ahead of the enemy team at 7 and I buy an item like Toxic Bullets and I already have tier 3 power surge, I know I am super strong and can look to fight as long as it's favorable. Getting into more of the counter buying against the enemy team, you should be doing this whenever possible. Seriously, it literally does not matter what kind of role you're playing or what character you're playing. You're never too good to spend souls on a counter item if your team really needs it. If you especially know that a character is going to give you problems, you can counter buy very early so that when you do fight that character, you have an advantage. And I see way too many players counter buy way too late into the game. It's as simple as, if you're playing Abrams and you know a Vindicta is going to give you trouble, buy knockdown or slowing hex so that when you do fight her, you have the advantage. Here's another tip for counter buying, because I think it's just that important. You should counter buy based on the fights, not the scoreboard. Yeah, the Haze may be 10-2, but maybe Dynamo is the one that's leading to those kills. So in that case, you should counter buy the Dynamo and not the Haze. Another thing you should pay attention to in regards to your items is your 4.8k investment spikes. If you don't know, buying 4.8k souls worth of items in a specific category gives you additional value. So you should be looking to hit this investment in your builds. Counterspell is an item that's scary for some to try, but I highly recommend you using it. You may be like, oh, what if I miss my parry? Well, counterspell only goes on cooldown once you've successfully parried a spell. So the only limiting factor is that you have to wait for your parry to come off cooldown. Also, don't be afraid to make your own build. It may seem scary, but just take a template from another build, maybe one that you're already using, and then tweak it, add to it, and just take time to learn about making your own build, because this will lead to you understanding what items work, what items don't, and why. So now that you have tips for builds, items, movement, and the economy, well, how do you apply that to team fights? Well, you should aim to take fights with a purpose in mind. And what I mean by that is, maybe you're strong and want to pick a fight, but your teammates aren't around to help. Well, then maybe you should think twice about if it's a good fight or if there's a better way to use your time. A big mistake that I see a lot of players make is that they try to save their teammate when they've made a mistake or a dumb play. What ends up happening is that instead of them dying, you both die, or just you die and they make it out alive. On the same note, you don't need to chase kills so much. The only reason that kills and deaths matter in Deadlock is because of the respawn timer. So if you get an enemy so low that they have to spend a lot of time retreating back to base to regen and so on, then you can use that time to accomplish something else around the map, since you've essentially just taken an enemy off of it. Another tip is that if an enemy has the Rejuvenator, then you can track which characters still have it by the little yellow line under their name. After they've used their Rejuve, the yellow line will no longer be under their name, so you can use that to track who you should potentially target in a team fight. On that same note, learn target priority. Stop dumping all your cooldowns into an Abrams while Paige is literally right next to him, healing all the damage that you just did. This also goes for if your team is fighting or chasing the enemy while they're maybe backing up or retreating. You should be calling out one target and then focusing on them, because if not, then your team fight is going to devolve into 3 smaller fights. Another simple tip is, like I said earlier, fight when you're strong. There's There's no need to challenge the Infernus who is 10k above you in a 1v1 fight. If you want to fight him, then fight when you're strong and have the advantage. Like maybe if your teammate comes to help gank the Infernus and now you have a numbers advantage. Another important tip is that if you win a team fight, you should always be aiming to capitalize on your advantage. The most effective way to capitalize off of a team fight is by taking mid boss. Some other acceptable ways is to run the soul urn, take an objective like a walker, and steal jungle. The important thing is that you capitalize on the enemy's respawn timers. Also, I guess going back to the topic of team fights, don't join a team fight that is already over. If you're too far away to have any impact on the fight, then just don't join it. Instead, you should look to make some sort of impact some other way, like split pushing an objective or denying the soul urn. And similarly, if you've ever been in a team fight or just a fight in general and wondered what these little triangles are, well, this means that you're currently under the effect of an enemy's passive ability, like Hunter's Aura or something. And on that note, you should constantly be looking at your map because of the information you gain from it is super valuable. Like, for example, if you spot 4 people on the left side of the map, then now you know that the right side is weak. On the map, you can also see when camps disappear, which is a great indicator on where the enemies might be. Another important thing for your character is to learn your matchups. Knowing which characters counter the hero you're playing and how to potentially counter your bad matchups is very important in any team fight and also in any 1v1 fight. This also works great in reverse because if you know when your character counters another character, then you can aim to target weak matchups. Also, whenever you die, be sure to know the reason behind your death. It's easy to go surface level and be like, oh, because my teammate didn't want to help me. But you should really look for any mistakes you've made, like maybe you didn't position well, or maybe you weren't looking at your map enough. When you're playing Deadlock, no amount of tips is going to make you play better if your mental is bad. So stop blaming your teammates every game. There's going to be games where you have a bad teammate or two, and then there's going to be games where the enemy has a bad teammate or two. But your teammates are never the thing stopping you from climbing. Similarly, if a teammate is making you mad, well, the mute button is really underrated. I mean, I use it all the time in order to protect my peace when I'm playing the game. So you should too. This is a more improvement tip, but in your games, you should also look to limit test and see what you can get away with, but you should also be able to understand why some things don't work. On the same note, after every loss, you should review one mistake and then focus on improving it into the next match. Like for example, if you died a lot because of your positioning, well then in the next match, you should look to position yourself around the map better. Another tip that I highly recommend is to focus on the tiny gains over time. It's easy to want to learn everything at once and just be the best right away, but improvement doesn't really come all at once. Instead, focus on one thing at a time when aiming to get better, and then eventually these tiny gains will pile up. Another good thing to know is the difference between a bad play and a bad execution. Sometimes the idea was good, but maybe your team wasn't coordinated enough, you missed your abilities or messed up your movement, and then other times the idea was the reason it didn't work out despite good execution. Another tip to really improve and get better is to learn the art of communication.
Need help on blue. Heading to green.
It's so underrated, and I'm not saying that you have to be a full shot caller the whole game, but I mean, simple pings around the map and voicing before you make a play will lead to your teammates being 10 times better since they're always on the same page as you. And on that same note, you should make your peace with losing. I mean, it's inevitable in Deadlock that you're going to lose even if you're the best player of all time. The goal is not to win every single game, but to learn how to win more over time. And most importantly, just have fun. Deadlock is a super fun game, but it's easy to forget that sometimes. So go out, find some friends to play Deadlock with, and just look to enjoy the game. Anyways, consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video, as it helps a lot. See ya.